going out.
Into the Breach did such a good job on Bank of really switching up mid-game, midway through their attacks to come away with a win, that you've got to give them the credit for that mental fortitude. And I agree. I think the first couple of rounds here on Border are going to be crucial. Border can be a map that attackers can run away with. And if Wild let that happen, it could be a pretty short day at the office for them. But very early days, and a lot comes down to this banning phase. We're going to see Monty removed, Ying removed as well. So far, a carbon copy
Rinse and
of
repeat.
what we got over on Bank. Now, what's it going to be, Tim? Quickly, you got to try and say them all.
Valkyrie, Soulless, Azami, Mirror, Kaid.
You were good. You got Valkyrie first, and it was the first ban there removed. What are we going to be looking at?
What?
Warden.
Oh. Got it wrong. I mean, Warden's an interesting one. To be fair, with Ying going off the board, Warden's importance is obviously slightly reduced. Warden's super powerful at the minute, so it's not a huge surprise. But you've got Monty, so you've got some smokes gone. You've got Ying gone, so you've got the Candelas gone. So you're pretty much being brought down then to operate as like maybe Glaz that might bring along smokes and that sort of stuff. So the Warden pick, I'm fine with. Like I say, he's powerful. He's got the Nitro. He's got the Scope. He's got, you know, teams are favouring him. In terms of what they are likely to directly see on site, given the attacking bans, I don't know how much relevance the Warden will have as a ban.
Is that just a ban that Wild have thrown out there to give themselves a good chance here on this first half?
Possibly.
They're starting off on defense. Maybe they're recognizing, look, we don't want to hamstring ourselves too hard. We want to have things like an Azami available. We want to have things like a Mirror available. Potentially could be something along those lines, because an Azami on Border, you start thinking about things that you would ban if you were playing a game of Border. I don't care who you're going up against. Azami's on my list. I want that removed.
5 seconds to go.
Yeah, absolutely right. Like you say, maybe looking to keep the power in there, as it were. But we will see as we go. We're going to have Teb putting out the same barbed wire that we saw from Doke a few times as well. Obviously, a little bit of a dangerous one. If you've got that bottom punch out there, you can be out of that door very quickly to challenge. As soon as you hear that barbed wire getting removed, you know somebody's got to be stood somewhere near it, so you can literally just pre-fire around the corner. So a difficult one for them to deal with.
Into the Breach going to be starting off here then, as most Borders do start in and around this security or monitors room. You've got to clear that area out, and we spoke already about the Azami and how powerful it can be, and this is really the best possible use case for those Kiba barriers. You're going to try and keep yourself alive for as long as possible, create as many nasty angles as you can, soak up as many grenades as you can, and really just waste a lot of time and be a big old pain. That's what Teb's doing at the minute. Looks like he's tempted for a bit of a run out there. He's actually going to get both of the Selmas. So much value. You can't just keep throwing him. There's no one in to deal with him. Finally, Azza gets in, but it's almost a little bit too late.
As you say, just, you know, almost throwing those gadgets away, knowing that he's still stood on that door. The nade from below has failed. You've not got anybody in there to deal with him. You've just got to hold your breath for 5 seconds. Just, you know, take a little pause. They know that the Legion is looking to challenge. I think he sees the drone, so that's going to tell Aces everything he needs to know. He comes back to try and find that utility, but they got a little bit unlucky there, ITB. I think Aces would have continued pushing that door, you know, with their full knowledge potentially. Maybe just a little misdrawn there as well. They've got to be aware of Ace's position, and they're not at the top of East Stairs, but Aces just maybe needed a little bit more trigger discipline there to, you know, wait until he had that absolute crystal clear shot onto Noah, gives his position away, gets taken down, and in a blink of an eye, it's 5 versus 2 in favour of Into the Breach.
Jegs and Hungry now tasked with holding on. Jegs has got a good line of sight here, and he's going to be good for one, but immediately traded. Azra hasn't slowed down at all. He's just rolling it over from Bank at this point. 3 kills on round number 1 here. Hungry, he's been droned, his location known. Hagumine is going to get detonated there. Noah's going to soak that up, but Kendry's got the kit. And ITB are going to play to the win condition. They might have a man advantage here, but they're not going to squander it. They're going to try and get the plant down. Fortunately for Noah, Azza is there for the trade. Just a quick 4 kills, Tim. Not a big deal.
Not a big thing. Doesn't like to talk about it. ITB managing to pick up the opener then. They do go into the breach and they get the job done in round 1 of attack. As I said, the first few rounds here could be crucial in terms of deciding who is going to come away with this matchup. WYLDE, they need to make sure they get running here. They cannot let ITB... I mean, it works perfectly for ITB. They're starting the attack on border. They've got a real opportunity to, you know, run WYLDE into the ground, essentially, at this point and, you know, really put them in a position whereby they've got to, you know, do the business in the second half of this, otherwise they end up on their way, because ITB could use this opportunity to build up a decent little lead. WYLDE are going to switch their site. They're going to move on to bathroom and cellars. We see Pikebull placing those cap cans. Capcan, I think, is a really valuable operator on border, and the reason that I say that is there's so many of those sort of quote-unquote doorways that you can put these gadgets on, almost like this one, that it doesn't really feel like a doorway. It feels like an arch. There's the couple of them in the main corridor. There's one that we saw him use down at the bottom of East Stairs. Thank you very much. I believe it's Red Like who's observing for us. Oh, Easy's moved on to the keys. It was Red Light last time around, so we joined by Easy himself. A pleasure, as always. But yeah, it's one of those that Capcan, I think, can be pretty brutal, because you're just moving around the map and you're getting slammed by his traps, and you're just forgetting that they're doorways, effectively.
Are you speaking from experience here, Tim?
Was the frustration coming through?
It all sounded a little bit too real. Just that you're getting slammed by the traps. It
might have happened once or
quite
twice.
Emotive. There are a couple of Capcans on this map that are almost guarantees, and I use the word almost quite lightly there, because they are very much guaranteed in certain elos. Obviously, this is a little bit different here. Speaking of the Capcan, they're going to be taken out first. Azza, he's just continuing from where he left off. Going to go for a little bit of a nade below, as the focus once again is to deal with this army.
Yeah, I mean, for Capcan, even if it doesn't come down to the damage as well, it's like Pikebull's dead now, but can still have an impact on this round. Not just in terms of kills, but in terms of time as well, because you've got to do that extra bit of droning. You've got to check every single door, every single archway, make sure it's clear. Azza's going to get himself one here, surely. No, Teb somehow manages to survive. He does not know how lucky he has been. Azza manages to chase him out of his position behind the Kiba barricades, at least. But again, Teb did a great job of this last time around and is continuing to do so this time, just really holding on to this position.
Teb is going to come under a bit of a world of hurt in a moment, though, and a good swing from Kanto sits him down there. Kanto getting almost a little bit lucky there. The team wasn't really ready to back him up if things had gone south. Ace is going to find some success here for WYLDE, as Noah will be taken down. With it goes the Lion and that utility. Azza, he's getting himself into an engagement with Hungry here as well. Still a minute left on the clock here, and Azza going to start to transition up these metal stairs. I thought that was Azza that got the kill there. It came up at a perfect time as soon as he started shooting, but it's going to be Kanto. Picks up his second on the round.
45 seconds left for WYLDE to hold on here, and at 4 versus 2, it's certainly not going to be easy. They've got aces above, which is a real point to the plus side. The site is bathroom and cellars, so he's got the direct verticals down into there, but he's going to have to make a move now. As has managed to take out Hungry, there's nobody on site. There's an opportunity. Did you hear that Capcan trap go off? That's onto Kendra, and I'll almost put money on it that it's at the bottom of East Stairs on that archway that I spoke about. Going to have the... Ooh, I was going to say final kill comes in, but Ace has managed to down one inside a workshop. It was exactly that point. I knew it'd get one. Final kill comes into Showers, and that is going to be the round. ITB with 2.
I told you, it's guaranteed.
Honestly, that one is just
absolutely guaranteed.
It just doesn't look like a doorway.
You're only wishing, Pikebull, that you'd put more Capcan traps on it. That's all you're going to be. That's all you're wishing. You're just wishing you'd committed to that one instead of one of the others. It wouldn't have mattered too much anyway. Azza, I think he's 5-0 right now. We're going to hit a short rehost, so we've got to keep a track of that, because it is important to give credit to the people that are getting a lot of the kills, and especially when they're having a pop-off performance like that. But 2 blinding rounds to kick things off here. Kenny, feeling the heat, just going to try and cool himself off a little bit of deodorant. It's obviously getting hot and heavy in there.
Certainly is. There's the pressure's mounting. They know what's on the line. Of course they do. This is for that spot against G2 in the grand finals later on today. They will have, a short break after this, and then we'll be right back into the action. And as Alfama said on the desk before we came in here, that can be a real positive for the team that's doing that, because they've got that momentum. They're hot. They're coming in on the back of just having played, whereas G2 are now sort of sat, waiting to see what happens. As he said, probably reviewing some VOD footage, talking strategy, preparing for the game, but not in the game, shooting, taking gunfights and staying sort of warmed up. So, it could be a real benefit for ITB.
I can imagine the hardest thing for G2 right now is keeping themselves together and all at home. They just strike me as the kind of bunch that would just go out for dinner at this point and just totally forget that they've got a grand final to be playing in, in the next couple of hours. So there is going to be a little bit of work to do there to keep their heads in the game, because obviously whichever team comes out of this series is going to be warmed up. They are going to be more than ready. They'll have had a warm-up scrim this morning as the first games have been going on, maybe had that on a second monitor or something as they're getting, prepped and going through the warm-up process. But now it's go time. And especially with the momentum that Into the Breach have got right now, obviously this technical pause isn't going to do much for that. It could cool them off a little bit. But with the way that they've been attacking so far on board, they've looked fantastic.
Certainly have. We had all the players sitting up to attention there, getting ready to load back in, and that is exactly where we will find ourselves. Round 3, if you're just joining us, then we had the first map, top right of your screen, our wonderful production team keep it updated. 7-5 on bank. ITB won that one. There was a real ebb and flow to that game if you missed it. It was sort of went, back and forth. ITB looked good to start with and then sort of slowed off in the middle of the game. WYLDE had a real good passage of play for a few rounds, and then ITB managed to get it over the line. So Into the Breach now 2-0 up here on WYLDE's map choice. And as I said, the first few rounds here would prove to be potentially very important. They've both gone Into the Breach. If they can continue on this trend, get themselves a 3-0, a 4-0 WYLDE, they are going to start feeling the pressure. There's no two ways about it.
The attacker's bomb diffuser has been dropped. Attackers have recovered their diffuser.
It's kind of weird as well, because I would have thought the Azami would have caused a lot more trouble for Into the Breach. It's not that they showed a lack of coordination earlier on bank, but there were a couple of times where, when forced to get into that big utility exchange, it wasn't working as you would expect. But the Azami isn't causing them too many problems at the moment. At least it hasn't in the first couple of rounds. Might be about to see a little bit of aggression here. Packball, he's going to come under some early pain and punishment. He's going to find one as a 1-for-1 trade, though, somehow manages to take Yonka with him.
Yeah, I think, if anything, you've got to give credit to Packball there for making the best of a bad situation, essentially. I think he was in a bad spot, really, given where they've pushed. I don't think he expected that sort of pressure to be coming onto the archive side so soon in the round, and just found himself having to try and react to it. And, he did what he could. He got himself the opener, took down the gridlock. Could be an important operator to lose. It's a big part of this plant, essentially. You've got some smoke grenades on there. They've got, plenty of alternatives for that, but you can also put those track stingers in, prevent anybody pushing that wall, swinging around the corner. So it really works out well, but they are going to go for it anyway. Kanto is planting, and it looks like it's going to stick. Beautifully timed nade from Azza there. Diffuser goes down, and honestly, WYLDE had no chance to stop that.
What a great play there from Into the Breach. The Kiba barricade going to try and do something, and a great swing. Teb, he's already halfway diffused here. Hungry's trying to keep him alive. Oh my goodness, Teb, what a job you've done there. Immediately jumping onto the counter diffuse. It was a fantastic plant from Into the Breach. The utility was timed to perfection, but the retake equally as good.
Fantastic Siege to watch there. Sometimes you've just got to have that heads-up moment of a player who says, I've got an opportunity here and I'm going to take it. And that's exactly what WYLDE did, and it was brilliant. Fantastic cover from Hungry as well. Let's not forget the man who was left on the trigger and trying to prevent any challenge coming in towards that disable attempt. It was absolutely brilliant from Hungry. WYLDE needed that round. It had been good from ITB up to that point, and you just sort of thought if they stuck that plant and won the round, WYLDE would feel like start feeling like they were being beaten up at that that point. 3-0
Yeah.
down and a round in under a minute, won by ITB with a rush plant on Archives. You start thinking, how do you come back from that? But no, great play from Wild there. They needed that. 2-1. That gives them an opportunity to get into this game.
It comes back to Packball for me.
Yeah.
He took out the gridlock. If the gridlock's there, Teb isn't going to be able to get to that diffuser as quickly or as easily to immediately start counter diffusing in and amongst the chaos. So it all comes back, as it so often does in this game, it all comes back to that opening pick and what you've lost in your utility exchange. So it just puts even more importance on that 1-for-1 that Packball was able to get. He was in a nightmare spot. He was always going to go, but the fact that he took one with him, it really attested there to the round going in Wild's favor. And they desperately needed that. They needed to get onto the scoreboard here on Border, because into the breach, you do just get the feeling that once this team gets a little bit of momentum, they really do work well off the back of it.
Yeah, you don't get to pick, you know, who you get in those early kills. It's luck of the draw usually, and I think Packball deserved that bit of luck that he had. Sometimes you find yourself in those positions through no fault of your own, really. It was just unexpected, and he took the challenge and got the job done. Teb is going to be in his favoured position once again. CCTV on the Asami behind the Kiba barricades, looking to hold them out of the map for as long as possible. It's something I've discussed a number of times. The attackers do so well on Border, and again, Leo picked up on it beforehand. You know, you can do so much of your work from outside of the map, from the edges of the boundaries. Once you get those attackers inside the map, it becomes an absolute nightmare at that point, because they're usually in a pretty advanced state. So holding them out for as long as possible can be really important for the defenders. Gonna see Azza lose his life to begin with, so a good start to the round from Wild.
Ace is getting that opening pick. It removes a couple of nades as well. Although I think they might have all been spent by that point. Regardless, Azra at 7-1 is definitely someone you want to be dealing with. Kanto is going to get one back as a late trade onto Teb, star of the show from the previous round. But look at Noah's positioning here, just on the other side of the soft wall to Packball downstairs. Still into the breach, looking to try and clear. That dread mine is going to give the game away here, but Packball can't do too much about it at the moment due to the Lion Scan and Kendrew. He's going to find that information out and be able to use it almost instantly. Aces, there it is. We get the Capcan kill that we were looking for here on Border. We've seen some damage up until this point, but that's the first confirmed.
You just know that they're going to come when those traps are out on this map. So powerful. You know, maybe underrated or underlooked a little bit, or overlooked, sorry, sometimes for a choice here on Border. But Ace is doing a great job with that. Brings it back to 3 versus 3. ITB have, I think, done well so far. They've put Wild in a couple of unwinnable situations. They made it very difficult for them, but Wild have stood tall and are able to get themselves back into the game, close it out nicely with Jegs and Hungry. As soon as they were in the 3v3, you always felt that Wild were going to win that round. They had the angles that they needed, and from that point into the breach, just had to play into their lines of sight, really. So well played from Wild. They didn't get rattled by the early aggression that came out of ITB once again in that round, and they managed to level things up 2-2.
It is now back to being an equal race, and a very tense one at that. 2 rounds apiece in a row for either of these two teams. Wild drawing themselves level with a very good defense downstairs in Workshop. That round for me, Tim, it was very reminiscent of some of the struggle rounds that we saw on Bank from Into the Breach on the attack, where it is just very one-dimensional and there's a single point of focus, and everyone else that's off doing something doesn't really achieve their role, and it forces them into this tunneled approach into the site. Moving through tellers, moving through that bathroom area, trying to get the breach open. If you haven't got top floor control, you're just going to die to the hatch. The long angles were still there to be abused. There was no one on that main entrance. A lot of different things really just stacking up against Into the Breach there with that attack. And I understand they lost the opening pick, but they've got to have a further plan than just that plan A. You know, they need that plan B for when things don't go too well.
Yeah, and this is, you know, what we picked up on Bank at times, you know, was getting to that position of just not really not really knowing what was next after something hadn't worked out. Packbolt has been roaming around, putting the cap cans out once again. We've got a few in different positions, I think, but he has tried that one down the bottom of East Stairs again, so him lurking around that archway. I'm not too sure about that. I don't think you get him with it twice. I think you've always got to be switching it up as the cap can, but sometimes it can be more about just trying to take their eye off the ball when moving through that area as well. I've said it about Malusi's Banshees as well before now. Something, you know, I'll always place them on the ground because to shoot them out, you've then got to look down to the ground. So if nothing else, it's taking somebody's aim away from the fight. You know, so there is that element as well to consider.
Just a little freebie there. Just a little tip for free.
Ah, you take that away with you. You take that away with you. I'll tell you what, I'm going to be going round rank. There's going to be Banshees on the floor all over the place. Just
everywhere. You're going to be dying to Banshees on the floor because you're looking down.
I will, because I'm looking down. Exactly.
Azza going to be on the Ash this time. Shouldn't have too much of a problem taking in security. We can see that it all looks fairly clear. Kanto going to be looking at making a bit of an attempt into the top of these east stairs as well. They're attacking into bathroom tellers, so control of office is required here. Aces going for a little bit of an exotic pick. It's one we don't see all the time. He's going to be on the alibi this time.
Alibi is just one of those operators that can be very slippery, very quick to move around the map. Gun not always fantastic. I mean, I like the Storm, but not always the best in terms of damage output. But we're going to have a couple of battles inside of Armory there. Aces manages to pick up Yonka, but Noah is there for the trade. Kendrew downed along the way, though. So that leaves us effectively in a 4 versus 3 at the minute. And I'm not sure if there's going to be the opportunity to pick the ace up or not. I think that's actually happening at the minute. Yes, it is. So Kendrew will be back up onto 20 health. Just slows ITB down by a little bit for 10 seconds or so. Whilst that happens, though, long range nade thrown from downtown by Kanto, but will not find its target. Tev somehow manages to keep himself locked away. I think he's maybe the floor below. We'll see as they start to push into there. Azza manages to get one though. Jegs, he pops up. Can he find himself a second? Absolutely not. It's going to be Noah who moves in through that window. That answers our question. The Oryx must have been downstairs. 2 versus 3 it's going to be now for Wild as they try to hold on.
Hungry just giving himself a couple of options there and making use of that shotgun as the final 15 seconds approaches. Azza caught up in a goo mine upstairs. Going to be a big old hatch drop here. Juggling the diffuser as Kanto now trying to make sure he's got a little bit of vert cover here, and the plant is going to start to go down. Just trying to get a line through the drone hole, but it isn't going to work. Hungry, he gets full white flashed at the wrong time. He's the only survivor here, and with the plant going down, he's now in a retake. Going to be a very difficult one, especially given Azza's position. The presence of mind to stay upstairs there, to not commit to the hatch drop, to trust his teammates. He's almost surely guaranteed the round here, regardless of what Hungry is able to pull off. Going to hit the swing, just missing a narrow couple of shots there onto Azza. Excuse me, it's going to be Kanto that is going to be above Noah. Going to have a head-to-head gunfight here and will fall, but as mentioned, it doesn't matter what goes on the site. It doesn't matter how good Hungry can be, because this vert should be covered here. Kanto, he can play this to perfection. All he's got to do is wait. He's still going to pick up the kill through the floor. Nice little floor bang there. Fantastically played by Kanto and into the breach.
Yeah, well played. I think they needed that round. They were just starting to lose a little bit of momentum to Wild. So I think coming out and getting that one was just about at the right time. It was well worked as well, creating an opportunity for that execution to get the diffuser down. Like you say, presence of mind to keep somebody above. Ultimately won them the round. You know, Hungry's in a position there where if there's another fight to take on the ground floor, maybe he's already taken it and won it. Or, you know, he had about 8 seconds or so, and we know in Siege it doesn't sound like a lot of time, but it can be all the time in the world if all you've got to find is one headshot. So yeah, well played there by Into the Breach. Just a good post plant from them, getting it done. 3-2 now as we move on to the final defensive round for Wild. It's going to be back to Armory for them. They've got Packbull on the mirror, going to leave half of the wall soft, allows them to be a little bit aggressive onto that balcony.
Final round as the sides currently sit. Going to see a hefty amount of 6 picks coming in here. We've got the Thatch coming in, the Twitch and the Ace.
10 seconds remaining.
Now we've seen all sorts of different rounds from Into the Breach so far. One that isn't going to go into the highlight reel is the last time they attacked downstairs to Workshop. It's a pretty one-dimensional approach through tellers. They didn't have that sufficient vertical clear, so I'd like to see that be a little bit more of a focus here and now. But with the lineup that they're bringing, it does look like they're going to go for something quite similar. They've got the hard breach, they've got the Thatcher, so they're looking to try and guarantee breaches be opened. They do have a little bit of nades to work with as well. They've got that option to do some vert with the sledge. So I'll have to see where they start to try and stack up here. There's a typical approach that's going to be trying to clear out that top floor. Twitch maybe trying to search out for some of those mirror windows, but Teb, he's going to see to that shock drone.
Again, just able to lock himself in that position. I think it's somewhere that he's played well so far. Just going to be up on the boost spot, using all the different angles that he can and trying to hold on for as long as possible. ITB just, again, exploring options, opening up that passport door. You know, sometimes you drop the barricade just in the thought process of maybe I'll need to go in there later in the round, maybe somebody else will. If it's not a danger to you, it gives you that opportunity to do so silently without having to knock that out. So Teb, he's still in position. This is looking good for Wild so far. They've got Packbull in behind the mirror. Sorry, it's Hungry that's moved in there behind the mirror, so he can bandit trick away as well. He's got the information he needs to do that. Teb's there. This is the position that we've seen ITB in a few times. Halfway through the round, they're not really getting anywhere. They're not, you know, undoing these problems, and it's something that they're going to have to try and deal with. They've tried to smoke off that window to prevent it being dealt with by Hungry. He manages to shoot off one Selma. They've gone in and smashed the mirror window. Azza gets the kill, but then look at that. Teb and Packbull just dealing with the problem. 4 versus 1 for Wild.
It's a huge response, isn't it, from Wild? Shaping up nicely for an even half here, unless Noah has something to say. But realistically, it's going to be a tough old ask. He doesn't even get through Teb. Only fitting that Teb finishes things out. The Azami here inside of securities. It feels like he spent almost half of the defender phase in that room, in that exact spot, Tim. But that's exactly where you expect the Azami to be, and Teb's done such a fantastic job on it.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? That's exactly what I'm saying there. You know, really, ITB were in a position at 1 minute 30. Teb's still in there in that location, and they sort of didn't know how to deal with him. They must have known they needed to deal with him. You can't think you don't need to deal with it, because they then just start trying to push the mirror window. And look what happens. Teb gets a double. Of course he's going to get a double. Packbull gets one as well. You've got to deal with CCTV before you start pushing onto the breach. You can't just say, we're at 1 minute 10, we have to push the breach no matter what else, because you're just going to lose the round. So, yeah, for me, again, into the breach there, just, you know, not dealing with the adaptation that was required when they didn't have the immediate answer to the problems that Wild were posing. Wild took full advantage of that. Good round from them. Again, I love Teb playing in that position. He's been doing very well with it so far. You know, got his just rewards there as well. So 3-3, we go on. It's an even split, and this game continues to be as tight as ever.
5 seconds to go.
I think this now, for me, really comes down to how well do Into the Breach use the bans that are available. Obviously, we've had the Warden ban. It's a really important pick, but it isn't necessarily a make or break operator when you combine it with the Ying ban. So you start to think to yourself, okay, how are Into the Breach going to take advantage of the fact that they've got a Solace, Ephemeria, a Mirror, and an Azami all open and available? Well, they haven't chosen the Azami initially, which I would say is a little bit of a surprise, given how well we saw Teb be able to do with it and how good it is just inside of security alone. So we'll see how that develops. Obviously, they've gone for a slightly different approach, and it seems that Hungry's almost single-handedly just dismantling it. He's getting a lot of value out of those shock drones.
Just going to be sending in the regular drones now, try and locate a few of these players, understand exactly what the setup is, where everybody is located, how the castles are allowing them to move around. Noah is going to be doing exactly that, just bouncing backwards and forwards, challenging onto that break room door. He knows that there's somebody there. He's waiting for the push, but he overextends, and Jegs, who was just that little bit more patient, manages to find the kill, takes down Noah for the opener, and that could be a big advantage for Wild now. He can feed information back into his team, but that's going to be the limit of Noah's contribution for the rest of this round, and Wild can start progressing into the map.
Another kill going to come in there for Teb. Deadly on the defense, deadly on the attack here. Getting those nades in from below. Into the breach. Need to respond fairly soon, and they're going to do just exactly that. Kendry, he takes Jegs down. There's an intricate castle barricade set up here. Castle was banned yesterday in Border. for this exact reason. You can create an absolute labyrinth to deal with. It can slow down the attacking push. Into the breach now, setting themselves up for the final minute. They've reinforced that wall into Fountain, so gives Kanto just a little bit more security in his position on that Fountain mirror window. Wild now starting to spread themselves out and figure out just exactly where this push is going to be going. Kanto, he can call out that info, can attempt the impact trick over the top, but it's not going to work out for him.
It's not. That Fountain wall is still going to get opened up. Ace has managed to find one with a nade as well. Kanto's on the run at this point, trying to keep himself alive on the Solace. There's always the possibility of denying from below. 4 versus 2 though in favour of Wild, but I need to see them now get in and start getting that diffuser down. Think about the clock, don't leave it too late. Tep hungry, they pick up the kills that mean they don't need to. A good round for Wild, an attacking win that they needed, but Wild are a team that love to play the diffuser. Get in there, make sure you're playing it when the opportunity presents itself. I don't want to see rounds in future slip them by because they run out of time, for example, but not meaning to be critical. They were good in the round, they got the job done, they were confident they could get the kills. 4-3 Wild, they take the advantage on border, and I honestly think Into the Breach are probably up against it now on this map.
I think they are. A 3-3 split for Wild on the defense was huge, and probably a win condition of this map, because we know what this team's capable of when they get themselves onto the attack. They're a very explosive attacking side. Yesterday we spoke of the fantastic teamwork. I think it was Leo that did a piece on the desk even this morning, just about how good Wild can be in that teamwork push on border, led really by Aces, the drones working ahead of him. There's not very many occasions where you'll see Wild take a single 1 versus 1 on the roam clear when they're attacking. Very often it's going to be off the back of some drone information and a player that's entirely unaware, or at the very least there's going to be somebody ready to trade, or there's going to be a crossfire. You're going to be trying to push a defender from A to B and catch them on the cross. It is something that they do so well. So Into the Breach really got their work cut out here as we move on in. They are going to bring the Azami this time. It's going to be Noah to play that. We can see if that makes a little bit of a difference in maintaining that roam for a bit longer. We also got Azza going to be rocking the pulse for a bit of information.
Look at this from Noah. What a little nest he's created himself here at the top of these stairs. It's going to make it so difficult for Wild to be able to push on in there. Need to be, you know, looking really towards some nades or something to clear that out. But guess what? They don't have any. So it could be an issue. The Selma charges, I guess, could be used to a degree in order to do that. But it just depends what are the value they want from that utility and whether it's available to be clearing out those keeper barricades, or whether we will see Noah be able to keep himself lodged in at the top of east stairs. We've got the pulse of Azza just feeding that info in as well. Going to be reporting at least 2 at passport doors, so that gives Into the Breach a good idea of where this push is going to mount from.
It's something that Wild often just totally exclude from their lineup is nades. And then you think about an Azami being available and you start thinking, well, you're going to have to bring him. You've got to find space for them in this lineup, because look at him go. Noah, he's still got one in pocket, and there's nothing that's touching him right now. He's safe as houses. He's even got a mirror window for a trade if anything really does come and put a lot of pressure onto him. Noah only loses this position if he really gives himself up and if he overexposes. And the Wild need to try and figure that out. It's going to be hungry to get their job done. I'm not sure where that headshot came from, but I spoke it'd only be given up if Noah overexposed himself. I can only think that's what he did to him.
You'd have to expect so, and that's going to be a big clearance for Wild. Like, that was looking like the big sticking point for the map. Kanto now having to battle towards the top of these stairs, but it's going to be dangerous for him to do so. He might just get himself a freebie here. I don't think the drone's being watched. There's the air jab, and that is, again, good attention to detail from this attacking side. But, again, just dipping themselves away and not really ready for the fight there. Look how aggressive Kanto's getting, and how about that for reflexes? Did you all see that Claymore trip sign at home, or was it just Kanto? Kendrew, Azza get one apiece. 3 versus 3 with the diffuser down on the ground.
Great play to stop the plant from going down, Kanto. I've no idea how he's still alive, by the way.
I'd have gone straight into that Claymore.
He ignores the drone, which is fair enough because no one was on it, but he didn't hear the air jam. He gets sent out, then he almost gets taken out by the Claymore. He's now been softened up, and you just get the feeling he's going to pick up the final kill of the round here. He's still upstairs, which is a crucial point to hold. Teb is going to be able to recover the diffuser and try and get the plant down. He's even got an Ossa shield to contend with. Kanto, he's finally been downed here, but not before Azza takes down Jegs. Azza with a C4, it's just ripped and sent out too late. Kanto, he scurried himself to the hatch. There's a big chance of a retake here. It all depends on if they know where Aces is. He's got a great line of sight onto the diffuser. I don't think the Ossa shield is going to help the defenders if they try and disable it from here, but unfortunately it looks as though they're going to be going at this one at a time. If they break this down and give Aces the chance, he may get it, but not today. Jonker there with the direct trade. Azza, he's going to be able to disable that active diffuser. Great clutch from Into the Breach.
Both of these teams just enjoying proving us wrong time and time again today. I think, you know, just the last round I'm saying, I think that WYLDE will have a big advantage now. They'll start to get moving on the attack, and then Into the Breach come back with a great defensive round. Despite losing that power position at the top of these stairs they were trying to hold on to, Kanto had a great round. His survival, you know, his survivability was certainly fantastic, and he made it difficult for the attackers to, you know, confidently push where they wanted to. Yeah, great play from Into the Breach. Get the job done, lock out tellers, and are able to move on to ventilation.
It's like trying to get out of a maze, isn't it? And every single way you turn, it's just another dead end, and you've got to double back on yourself. I guess that's how Kanto was feeling in that round. Everything he was trying just wasn't working. It was even risky stuff like taking a little bit of a run outside onto the balcony, but good on him for persevering there, and good on the rest of the team. I think Azza played a blinder there. We joke around, but we did get the revival onto Kanto as well, coming through as he screwed himself down the hatch. We've got a little bit of Eminem's SI chance up here on the screen. I assume these are stats from Sprabruni. So WYLDE win depends on map 3. Into the Breach win 7-1 or 7-0, 29%. Into the Breach win 7-2 or worse, 24%. So Eminem's SI chance is well and truly out of their hands right now.
It's been eaten away at, isn't it?
It's looking quite slim, I'm going to be honest with you.
It's just getting eaten away at the more rounds that are secured here. ITB getting this one done now would leave them at 24%. But as we see, if they go to a map 3, then it will all depend on that outcome as to how it is affected. Teb is going to be able to grab that first FNAT Dread Mine, I think. But then the Bravo clutch drone will be taken out before it can grab any more electronics. Noah in another one of these positions that he's just going to try to hold on to for as long as he can. He really is the player that is going to be put under pressure consistently round to round. Packball picking up Kanto. Kendrew there for the trade though, leaving us 4 versus 4. Good progress though. Diffuser down, so that's something that WYLDE need to consider. That is going to need to be recovered, but with 2 minutes left on the board, they've got an age of time to get this done.
A lot of time available for WYLDE to figure this one out. We've got Aces upstairs. He is going to just dodge out from a C4 there, almost unbeknowing that he was doing so, just getting a little bit lucky on his movement and timing. Pops himself down east stairs. I'm going to be attacking into workshop, so again, as is the norm on border, you've got to clear top floor regardless of what you're doing. You're going to have to clear some of it. Azza is going to be below inside a passport. Of course, does have the Solace, so if there's any information to gather, I think he just gets a glimpse there. It's at his max range. But Aces does need to be careful.
As you say, I think the range extended so far then that Ace's breathing would have taken him off the scanner. Each time he took a breath out, but Azza is able to pick him up. The location information did the job, and Jonker just moves into showers here. Now, I'm not sure if he knows there's somebody in there with him. I think he's got a good idea, but do they know he's in there with them? That's the question. Nope, they don't have a clue. Jonker misses his shots, though. Needs to be careful that he doesn't lose that fight. Noah picks up Jegs, traded out immediately. 3 versus 2. Still advancing into the breach.
Hungry does have the diffuser, and Teb's got a lot of space available to him inside. This is often the way that we go now. The defenders will kind of surrender that control inside a site and play for a retake, especially when they have an advantage. The plant now starting to go down. Teb just going to give the game away there as the Dreadnought activates. As they're trying to make something happen from the hatch. Hungry eventually downed and finished off. And Teb, he's got so many different angles to try and check onto. Does have the DMR, so only needs to land a couple of bullets onto each, but he will be taken down by Azza into the breach. Starting to take the lead once again, but it's only by 1 round.
That's it. It's been close all the way through, realistically, on border. And I think, as I said at the beginning of this map, I think there's more twists in the tail to come yet. We're not going to have anything as clear-cut as a 7-4 win from ITB. I don't think it would surprise me for WYLDE not to get another round or so here. We'll see whether we push the distance, but ITB now within touching distance of a match point at least. You know, and what a position for them to be in, you know, coming into stage 2 as a new team and being now in a point where they can fight for a potential major spot in a grand final. They're 2 rounds away from it. That is absolutely huge. But at the same time, normally I'd be saying, you know, maybe the pressure's, you know, the pressure will start to tell on these players. They'll start to feel it. They've got Kanto and Kendrew, 2 of the most experienced players in Pro Siege. Like, in all honesty, into the breach, in terms of pressure and managing the situation, should really be fine. You know, it's just about whether they can get the job done on defense, but they're looking pretty good so far. A
little bit of a 6-pick coming out here for Packbull. He's going to be switching across from the Ace onto the Flores. With it goes the hard breach, though. So you are going to limit yourself a little bit. You've got to wonder just exactly what the plan is here. Good thing to see while bringing is the nades. We've commented a couple of times where there have been occasions where they kind of wish they would have had them, or at least it looks like they would have had an easier job if they'd have had the nades. So we'll see where Teb chooses to use those now. There isn't going to be the Azami necessarily to deal with, but there are going to be locations like mirror windows. There's going to be castle barricades. Maybe that's a little bit as to why the Flores has been chosen here as well, just to help to deal with that labyrinth. It's going to be Hungry kicking things off, getting a little bit of value out of the shock drone. We're seeing so much Twitch at the moment. And I'll be honest, I really enjoy it. I think that the Twitch coming back into the meta is fantastic.
This is going to take Noah down. I think, you know, yeah, anybody using the Twitch has obviously just got to be capable of consistently controlling that F2 recoil, which is pretty extreme now compared to certainly what it used to be. Aces is going to take the challenge onto the one inside of Office. Can't find the man with the spray through. Kendrew taking a little tickle of damage there, but not the end of the world. WYLDE have got themselves the advantage, of course, 4 versus 5 in their favour at the minute, but they're struggling to get themselves fully established in Office, sorry, in CCTV. They just keep backing in and out. The castle barricade just slowing things down a little bit. Great nade from Aces, though.
Ace is going to be making that nade sing here. I commented at the time that Teb had him and forgot that Aces had him as well, and he certainly reminded me. 3 kills on the round for him. Teb joining the ranks too. Azza, he has a C4 and he's got a bit of vert, but he's up against all 5 attackers here. Plant going down, and Teb, you just get the feeling he was just waiting for the moment, wasn't he? He was waiting for Packbull to start getting that plant down just to guarantee it, and then bang, a little bit of vert action, a little bit of an attack there from WYLDE that really put the pace on. Again, leveled up.
That's going to be the timeout called by Into the Breach then. We saw how effective the timeout was last time around. Kangaroo Kenny having another opportunity now to try and steer them in the right direction. Into the Breach, of course, having a couple of opportunities to get themselves onto match point, but this will be the last of those 2. Now that we're at 5-5, we're going to see all 12 rounds here, no question again. Could be heading for a bit of overtime. We will see. Honestly, this is anybody's. It's toss of a coin stuff, is this? I really thought WYLDE would come in and run away with things on the attack. I thought that, you know, it may be another sort of 7-4, 7-5 to WYLDE, but no, absolutely not. Into the Breach, just digging the heels in and saying, we want this done in 2. We want not a break, but just having that sort of less play time if you can, rather than going into G2 after 3 exhausting maps.
Hopefully for Into the Breach, Kenny's fired up the team there. We got the trademark hand movements and knees dropping, so you can only assume it was an effective timeout. And teams are usually good for a round after a timeout anyway, regardless of who the coach is. That's, you know, it's no slight onto any coach out there, but usually teams are pretty good for a round after the timeout because it gives them a chance to really start to hone and focus in on something. They're going to know that they're going to be attacking, or they're going to be defending downstairs into bathroom and tellers. Being successful here previously, I think I'd like to see how Noah does this time, knowing that there are a lot more nades being brought from WYLDE, because the Wamai discs are only going to do so much there from Kanto if he chooses to place them at the top of East Stairs again. If Noah does choose to create that crystal maze of safety that he was providing himself with last time at the top of East Stairs, because we did see him fall out of there from Hungary, and it was only from a headshot. Well, I say only from a headshot. It was from a headshot, but there were no nades from WYLDE. That was the really interesting point of it. Now they've got 4 of them, so I'm not expecting him to survive for as long here.
Certainly shouldn't. Like you say, just adapting to the problem. They got it dealt with last time, but it took time, and that's always the factor. How about that? Jongi, you've got to win those. Teb able to walk in on him and find the kill. Azza manages to pick one up onto Jegs to keep his level at 4 versus 4. He knows that there's one inside a workshop as well. Teb did take a lot of damage on that opening engagement, so he's not going to be too keen to get into a head-to-head battle here, and Azza just wants his opportunity to put that UMP to work.
Another way of dealing with it is just to entirely ignore it, and that seems to be what WYLDE have done. Noah is giving up that position at the top of East as Aces comes down here. He's going to find himself one onto Azza. Just gets caught looking the wrong direction. Advantage WYLDE now, but HP not looking great. Got both Aces and Teb sitting pretty low now. There are no C4s remaining on the side of Into the Breach, so no explosives to worry about, but there are still some lethal gunners. They're going to be ready to take these challenges.
Noah is going to pick up Hungary, levels things out at 3 versus 3. Halfway through the round, you could be forgiven for thinking that we were further into this one. There's been so much action so far. Noah manages to pick up another onto Aces. He's still in and around East Stairs, still hasn't been cleared out of that power position. Teb, he's going to have to try and get something going, but low health after that opening engagement with Jonker is going to make things difficult. They know his position from the cam. They've got Diffuser at their feet. This is all in the hands of Into the Breach at the minute. He's got the nade cooking. I don't think he's going to find anything that he wants. He's trying to support the push of Packbull, but again, the players are just dipping away. Noah's going to stick around for the fight for the time being, but everybody else has just retreated from Into the Breach. Kanto just supporting from that office wall.
Noah digging in on this East Stairs. He doesn't want to get too overzealous on this.
Beautiful.
Kanto is there for the trade. Teb eventually will root Noah out, but look at his HP. Doesn't have the diffuser. He's got 35 seconds, and he's got 2 players left to find. Kendrew, he's dug into the bathroom stall, and Kanto is going to be above. How is Kendrew alive there? That was blisteringly close there through the wall. Teb almost left wondering here. He's not got a lot of information to go off at all. He can recover the diffuser, but it seems though Into the Breach is just going to let him. It's probably the safest thing to do right now. They can try and get this plant down, and now Into the Breach have to react. Kanto can choose to hit the drop. Kendrew, he's going to hop himself over the top and try and catch Teb in the 1 versus 1, but it doesn't quite happen. Teb, he takes Kanto down. Fortunately, Kenny is there for the trade. A very important kill from Kendrew. That gets your heart beating.
It really did. I thought Into the Breach had maybe just made a little bit of an error there. I had no issue with them allowing the diffuser to be collected, play Kanto above, force him to plant. There's only 15 seconds left. You know, yeah, no problem with that. They won't necessarily know how low health Teb was at that point, but I just think they left it too late to be able to challenge him when the diffuser was going down, and I just looked at that and thought, there's a world here where Teb wins this against Kendrew. Granted, with the low health, again, making it very difficult, but that's not something that ITB could necessarily have been aware of. They'll have no doubt had a call from Jonker that, you know, look, I lit him up at the beginning of the round, but still, a bit of a risk from them. A good win in tough circumstances. I like the challenge from Kanto up at the top where Noah was being pressured by Packbull on East Stairs, and they just had no idea that Kanto was on the office wall, essentially, and he stepped out and got himself a freebie. It was really well played. But yeah, ITB just flying a little bit close to the wind on that one, and they're going to try to lock it down here in round 12 again. They won 7-5 on Bank. Can they repeat the scoreline, or will be having 3 extra rounds?
Jonker sat there going, he's one shot, mate. He's one shot. Just breathe on him. That's all you got to do. Oh, I'll tell you what, very close indeed. I think Kenny played it really well.
Yeah.
If Kendra would have overpeaked that or overswung, I didn't really get a good handle of where Kanto was coming from, but I imagine he dropped the hatch and then went round and through into the corridor. There's a world where they line up there, and how many times do we see someone come off a diffuser and just immediately dome somebody? So really well played there from Kendra, and of course the rest of the team to get him into that position. But this is where things get a little bit serious. A match and a series point for Into the Breach, a chance at booking their spot against G2 later on today. And for Wild, this is everything. Win this to keep them in it and to potentially take themselves into an overtime.
Jegs is just going to be heading up to the top floor before opening that detention wall. The soft breach charge is there and ready. Decides he's going to go up elsewhere and just move a little bit further along. We're going to have a little challenge from outside through to inside. Passport door into customs. Again, wow, just sort of feeling things out here, but the players must be feeling the pressure at this point. They are one round away from dropping out of the last chance qualifiers, you know, agonizingly again after coming so close to having that opportunity to get themselves through to the major. They are going to want to give this everything they've got. They've got 1 minute 50 to save themselves.
Pat Ball going to use Selma there to open up the mirror window. Removes a little bit of Kendra's ability to play up there and actually forces him to drop on out. So a fair trade there, I would suggest. Noah going to look to be, again, making that labyrinth. He's got those Kiba barriers. Looks as though he's tempted to put 2 down, but instead he's just going to wait and further burn out this utility. The wall has been opened there as well, but he was more interested in taking the engagement. He should have been worried about the nade flying through to him.
This is, picking him up with an absolute beauty there. But how about that for a peek round the corner from Kendrew? 4 versus 4. And Wild cannot get themselves into a game of attrition here because they need this round. 1 for 1 for 1 might just leave them out of things. They haven't sorted out that top floor yet either. Kanto is going to be forced to drop away. So that's something at least. There is no vertical presence left for Into the Breach anymore. Asa, what are you having a look for? What does he think he's found? There's nobody out there. He doesn't necessarily know that, but he's going to use the Solis scanner just to see if anybody was on a drone actively at that point, but he's not going to find anybody. 30 seconds left to go. Wild need to make sure they don't leave this too close to the wire.
Jex is going to transition down these east stairs now. He does have a player inside of Tellers to contend with and some good information by the looks of it. Jonker, he gets taken to 1 HP and eventually finished off. Again, a brilliant crossfire from Wild. This is what they are so good at on these attacks, is pinpointing roamers and putting the pain to them. Pikebull, he's going to make his way on into sight. He's going to try and get the plant down here. Kenny, he's heard that go and he's got the heads up, takes him down. Diffuser cold on the ground, and look at the time. There's none of it left. There's 1 defender left alive. It's all down to Azza. All he's got to do is pick up the kill onto Hungry, and that's it. Into the Breach. They have booked their spot against G2 later on today.
Look at the scenes of celebration there on the player cams. You can see exactly what it means to this team. They've got the job done, and they've got it done in quick fashion. 2 maps is all it took for Into the Breach to secure themselves that grand final position. Wild, they certainly played their part. They really did deliver in a lot of those rounds. They just could not get themselves over the line on either of those maps. They went to 12 each time. 24 agonizing rounds for Wild there that sees them drop out of the last chance qualifiers, but props and celebrations go to Into the Breach. What a fantastic performance.
A full team performance as